So then Art Matrano like really hurt himself, like he fell off a ladder or something, broke all his ribs. So when they made Police Academy 4, they had to bring back GW. What? Hat? I'm not wearing a I'm not wearing a winter hat inside. It's April. We got to get out of this fucking quarantine. 2, 3, 4. Da da beep ba di sta na. Stiddy da do ba di di. Flassen nach mach sabu. It's Wednesday. We're all dead. Hi, everybody. My name is Jimmy, and I did not go to the comic book store this week because there are still no new comics. That did not stop me, however, from making purchases from my comic book store, my local comic book store, LCS as we call it in the industry, the being a moron industry. We call it government. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm not going to let no goddamn pandemic stop me from funny books. Picks of the week. Da-da-ba-da-da-da! So these first couple picks of the week. Wait, is that right? No, that's a picks of last week. Yes. Yes. Okay, there we go. Now I'm all organized. Okay, so, like most comic shops, non-essential businesses, mine is technically closed for business, but I don't know all the ins and outs, to be honest with you. All I know is that I call the owner of the shop I go to every week, and I buy some comics from him, and then one of his employees drives it to my house. It's all very nice. So, since the reason I'm bringing this up is because I'm encouraging all of you out there to continue to support your local comic shop. I know we're all shit scared, and sorry for swearing, and we're all pretty broke, but as much as you can, it's really, this is, it might just be polishing the brass on the Titanic, but you got something better to do. Okay, so, my comic shop is currently running a buy two, get one free sale on trade paperbacks. And I would imagine that yours is probably doing something similar in order to keep people coming back. Now, Warren, the owner, he posts on Instagram a lot and, stuff like, hey, we have got this stuff and this, that, showing off his wares. And I asked for, you don't need to know all this. I asked him if he had a list of stuff they had in stock, and he did not. But he said he could make me some recommendations. And then I realized I've been very behind on DC Comics. When I used to work in a shop, I used to get pretty much everything. I used to get previews every month, and I'd order tons of stuff out of there because it was all just in exchange for my menial labor, which is even more menial than usual. When I quit that job about 2 years ago, I had to start paying for my comics like a savage. So that meant that all of DC just pretty much went. I will, but there's a current Batman title that Warren Ellis is writing that I'm enjoying, and a couple other books here and there. But even before this, I was only really buying a couple, because I think it was after New 52, I definitely dropped a lot of DC, and then after Rebirth, I dropped most of DC. But not happily. So there's still like some DC stuff out there that I've been wanting to get, that I've been trade waiting. And if you've been trade waiting anything, now is the time to stop trade waiting. So what I bought for the two are these Brian Michael Bendis Superman trades. This is volume 1, and it's entitled The Unity Saga: Phantom Earth. This is the Unity Saga: The House of L. This is volume 2. This is Superman 1 through 6, Superman 7 through 15. This is of the current Superman series. Brian Michael Bendis, of course, is, I don't think it's going too far to say he is the most responsible for the shape of the Marvel Universe as it is today. He was Marvel's pretty much head writer for the last 20 years. He created the Ultimate Universe, or at least spearheaded the creation of such. He also wrote or headed up the creative team on most of Marvel's major crossover events over the last few years. So, yeah, he's kind of a big deal. And about 3 years ago, he made the announcement that he was not only leaving Marvel Comics, he was going across the street to their distinguished competition. And I'll be honest with you, my initial reaction was equal parts, oh, good for him. That's going to be really interesting to see his take on these characters. And it was equal, that feeling with what a Judas. I cannot believe you're betraying me like this. But I had read a couple of those, like his first Superman stories were a miniseries called Man of Steel, which I believe ran for 5 issues. And then he started this regular Superman series. He's also been writing Action Comics. He's been writing Young Justice. He brought back the Legion of Superheroes. Very little of it means anything to me. I'm not as well versed in DC lore as I am in Marvel, but Bendis seems to kind of be aware of that. I remember reading the Man of Steel books. Hell, I even have the first few issues. I've forgotten when I bought this trade. I actually had the first few issues of the Superman book. He's making it, or so far it seemed to me anyway, he was making it very easy for non-DC types to come in on it. Now, obviously, I've read Superman more than a bit, but certainly not within the last few years. And I do know that currently in the storyline that Bendis is doing, that Clark Kent has revealed his secret identity to the world. And so that does sound very interesting. It's all very interesting, is what I'm getting at. So I'm looking forward to reading those. And for my third trade that I got for free, I got this here, Green Lantern International Lawman, Volume 1 by Intergalactic. Did I say international? I mean, yeah, but also Intergalactic Lawman. Written by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison has been one of my absolute favorite writers since I was a kid, and he's mostly a DC guy, so I haven't read a ton of his stuff lately. He cut his teeth on DC's Vertigo line, which is, the mature readers line, and he was able to do stuff, his most well-known work, like on Doom Patrol and the Invisibles and stuff like that. He did briefly work for Marvel writing the X-Men, which was a tremendous run, but it's apparently ended very poorly. So he went back over to DC and has not left. He wrote Batman for a few years, and I think I have all of those, though, to be honest with you, I was getting kind of sick of it after a while. So, yeah, now he's been writing Green Lantern. They're doing this by season, I believe. This is season 1. Or something like that. But this is the first 6 issues of his run. I'm not sure how many are available. I'm pretty sure, because they do kind of do comics as though they're TV shows now, which really only irritates me, like nominally. Like, I just don't like calling them seasons. But they do an arc and then take a break, and then do another arc and take a break. So in that way, it is kind of like television, but whatever. All right, so that's from the shop. Picks of the week. Whoop. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. And now picks of the week, not from the shop. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. So I was starting to pull stuff out of my own personal library here, but the thing of it is, and I started the books I showed you guys last week that are out of my own collection. I started reading the Marvel book by Sean Howe for the second time, and it's great. Well, one of the best parts of that book, maybe the best part, is that, like, as a kid, I fully bought into the Mighty Marvel bullpen and all those guys working elbow to elbow. And, but as it turns out, they're complicated people. They're artistic types. There's a lot of friction. There's a lot of stuff. And honestly, and this is in no way meant to disrespect anyone. It's so funny how much everyone hates Stan Lee. From the beginning, from the time he started working at Timely Comics in 1950, I think it was. He was under 18. He was 18 years old when he became editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics. Anyway, so that's good. But I thought I do have stacks and stacks. I have shelves full of books that I haven't read yet once. So I thought I'd pick a couple of those that you guys can find on the Hoopla app, which is a public library app for the Los Angeles County Library. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming wherever you're watching this, your local library has an app that you can check out books, but I'm using Hoopla in this case. I looked up a lot of stuff on Libby, which seems to be more like you don't even need an LA County library card to get one, I don't think. But these were not on. I checked a bunch, and most of them were not on Libby. None of them, in fact. So these 2 books are on Hoopla. Speaking of early Marvel, first up we have Jack Kirby's Omnibus The Demon. This is all 16 of the original issues of this series, written and drawn by Jack King Kirby. This is from the 70s. It's not even, still got the old tagger on it. It's not even open. I've had this for years and I still haven't. There's like a whole bunch. I don't know if you can see. No, you can't. I've got the Losers Omnibus. I've got, I think, all the Steve Ditko omnibuses that they did in this edition. These editions aren't really well put together, especially for a $50 cover price. They're kind of chintzy. They've since improved. I think they had to, because Marvel was dusting them in a lot of ways, but, in this way in particular. The Demon has always been one of my favorite characters, despite being a DC Comics. And I did not even realize that Jack Kirby had created him when I was reading. When I was a kid, the Demon's solo series was written by Alan Grant, and I just really liked how funny he was. And then after Alan Grant quit that book, he was replaced by a young fellow by the name of Garth Ennis out of Belfast, I think he's from. And that was my first exposure to Garth Ennis, and whew, that changed a lot of things. Well, I mean, he became my favorite writer. I guess that's not that big of a change. Anyway, the thing about Hoopla is that, and this is something I had known just using the app over the last couple of years, they have all of these DC omnibuses. So if you don't care about the Demon, you can go and you can read the Losers, which I can also not recommend enough. All of Jack Kirby's Fourth World stuff. Like I said, all the Steve Ditko stuff is in there. The Complete Shade the Changing Man, the Complete Hawk and Dove. So I think Hawk and Dove and Shade the Changing Man might share a book. Regardless. And then when you're reading those on your app, you don't have to worry about the shitty binding. Sorry again for swearing. And then, as long as we're on this page, I also purchased this book a few years ago. This is Kirby, King of Comics. This is a biography and, a retrospective on Jack King Kirby's lifetime and his career, written by Mark Evanier, who, if you collect comics at all, you probably recognize the name. Mark Evanier, largely known to me, that's how I discovered him, was he's the co-writer on Gru the Wanderer with Sergio Aragonés. But he also, which I was unaware of at the time, he wrote for the Garfield and Friends Saturday morning cartoon. He wrote for a bunch of cartoons from when I was a kid. He was Jack Kirby's intern when he was in high school still. So he's had a worm's eye view of the comics field since Time Out of Mind. And he's also written extensively for television. He's an LA guy. So he's just like a fount of information. So the fact that he wrote a book about Jack Kirby does not surprise me at all. It's got a lot of reproductions in it, but a lot of great text and stuff. Look at that. I mean, I know we've all seen the cover of Fantastic Four #1 a million times, but when you can look at it up close like this, it's a thing of beauty. So those are my recommendations for picks of the week. Already way overboard. Now picks of last week. Hi. At least I feel like I'm not being as much of a bummer as I was last week. I was pretty bummer. So the books I showed you last week, it was the Marvel Comics book. It was This One Summer, written by Mariko Tamaki, who I just found out is going to be taking over Wonder Woman pretty soon, so that's cool for her. I mean, I'm not going to read it. I would be more inclined to read Wonder Woman if Mariko Tamaki's writing it, though. I haven't read Wonder Woman since Brian Azzarello wrote it, which was back in 2013. I like the character fine, but again, it's a DC thing. Azzarello's run is super good. This means I think something is super good. So it was that. Marvel Comics. What was the Mariko Tamaki This One Summer? And then, what was the third thing? Hold on a second. Can you tell me what the third thing is? Oh, yeah. I gotta do everything around here. It's Kagan McLeod's Infinite Kung Fu. So I haven't started the two comics yet, and I probably won't because I've got so much to read without kind of revisiting stuff. But what I also got last week, which I didn't get to show you because I recorded this mere moments before this package arrived at my door, TKO Press, which I've mentioned this before, is doing a deal not unlike Scout Comics and Black Mask are also doing, where any purchase you make through their website, half of those proceeds will go to whatever comic shop you ask them to give to. And if yours isn't on there or you don't have one, you can give it to Galaxy of Comics in Van Nuys, California, which is my local comic shop. So I went to the TKO Press website, and this is a publisher that's gotten right past me. They've only been around for a couple years, and since I don't work in a shop anymore, I'm not necessarily tuned in to everything. I don't get previews anymore either, so I kind of every week is a surprise for me now, the comic shop, which I kind of like after 15 years of working at a shop. It's kind of nice to walk in and go, oh, or to, virtually walk in and discover these books that I'm about to show you. So they had 3 books that I bought. I only got a chance to read 2 of them, but boy, oh boy, best stuff I read this week, absolutely, hands down. First of all, this is a no-brainer. This is Sarah by Garth Ennis and Steve Epting. It's a very Garth Ennis-y book, and if you don't like him, you probably won't like this. But it's also, frankly, amazing to me. This is an incredibly intense and touching story of a female sniper in the Russian army during World War II. And the weird thing is about it, it's not even the first one of these kinds of stories that he's written. Garth Ennis has been mostly writing war stories for the last at least a decade. Certainly since The Boys ended, it's pretty much been all war stories. And I am including the Punisher books that he's written since. But yeah, dude, I can't say enough. And also, Elizabeth Breitweiser did the coloring on this. Steve Epting, you might know because he drew the arc of Captain America that Ed Brubaker wrote, wherein Steve Rogers got killed. And Elizabeth Breitweiser has been just tearing it up as a colorist. Her name just keeps popping up everywhere. So I cannot recommend that enough. But what I can further not recommend enough is this book, Goodnight Paradise, by Joshua Dysart and Alberto Ponticelli. I think I had even mentioned this last week. I couldn't remember the title, and I couldn't remember the creative team. And I said something like, oh, I don't even know who they are. But no, I know who these guys are. Dysart and Ponticelli did The Unknown Soldier back in, I want to say, the late aughts, early teens of this century. The Unknown Soldier, another DC comic. The Unknown Soldier was a character back in the 70s in the Grey War comics that DC did back in, which were amazing. And so the premise is that his face was destroyed in battle, so he has bandages just around his face, so nobody knows who he is. The government will send him in on top secret black ops. He'll often wear a mask too, so he looks human, and he's like a master of disguise. But so much fun. And then so Dysart himself is very active. I don't remember the whole story, but he's either lived in Africa or he's written a lot about it, but his Unknown Soldier all takes place in Africa. And it's all kind of like real, child soldiers and Idi Amin type shit. And it's, woo! And Ponticelli's an incredible artist. Now this book is a little bit different, but very much in the same vein. This is a very, very, very classically structured private eye story. It takes place in Los Angeles. It involves a little girl lost. It involves, there's no real femme fatale now that I'm thinking about it. Kind of. But you have a down and out private detective who in this case is an actual homeless man. And there's one case, it's the case of a murdered girl, but really that's hiding much deeper and more disgusting moral corruption within city politics, especially of Los Angeles. I know that sounds very grad school, but trust me, it's super good. And as a very happy resident of Los Angeles, California for just the last 3 years, it got me. It's all in Venice, which I barely go to, but it still is like, oh man, I love an LA story. So yeah, I cannot recommend either of those books enough. The third book is Sentient, written by Jeff Lemire, who I've raved about, and drawn by Gabriel Walta, who I don't think I've raved about, but who's absolutely one of the best comic book artists working today, at least in like kind of mainstream stuff. He drew Tom King's brilliant The Vision book from Marvel a couple years ago. He also drew Cullen Bunn's Magneto series from a few years back, which is not his best stuff, but the art was unbelievable. It's still pretty good. Picks up last week. Okay, I think that's everything. I feel like I really went over. I'm sorry. But that's it for this week. And, stay safe, wash your hands, and Seth Meyers loves you. I don't know what else to tell you. And, yeah, have a good one. 2, 3, 4. Ba-da-beep, ba-ba-ba-doo. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, this hat. Oh, I don't know.